Just two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Hello, Josh. How you doing today?
Not too bad, just another blistery day in, the Midwest, but I guess you're not too far from me since I found that out the last time we talked.
That's right. You are here in the Midwest. Where are you again?
Located in central Wisconsin, about
That's
45 minutes north of Madison. So we probably pick up a lot of the same weather.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you may not follow football, but we got the Packers Bears big game at the end of the year here. The Packers need to win to get in the playoffs, from what I heard anyway.
Yeah.
So it's or maybe they need to. I don't know. Who knows? But the idea is that the Bears could go in and knock them off and all this stuff. And
The age-old rivalry continues.
yeah. I mean, I remember, back in the 80s and 90s for a while there, the Bears were always had the upper hand. And the next 30 years was your guys'. It's like, it's like crazy. But
Yeah, it's been a good run in my life.
yeah,
It's been a good run so far.
right. Yeah, I used to remember oh, can't wait to play the Packers, but they're our rival, and we tend to kick their butt every time. I got that early in my life, but then it was over.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, I'm grateful you're here today. I mean, without getting into it, I know you're not 100%, 100% today, but you're so dedicated to this topic and sharing about this that you're here anyway. So I appreciate that. I just want to acknowledge you for that. So thank you.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. I really am excited to be on this podcast and, watching you and listening to your podcast. I just have to say I'm very grateful to be able to share this space with you today. So thank you.
Wow, sure thing. My honor. Okay, so yeah, wow. Talking about men and mental health, and I know you have a big history with that, with mental health and all types of challenges, and with I don't know, like being a guy, and things that guys deal with. They get us in trouble. I was just talking to a client the other day. That's a guy that he actually was on the first series. I don't need to mention his name, but he was on the first series, and I was just talking. He says that he was talking to his parents, and he says because he was so much trouble early in his life, they said we were about to write you right out of our will. We're about to be done with you. And all the trouble you were. And we're talking about, he was on the criminal path, the drug dealer path, like all this stuff. And but he was able to turn it around. He's able to actually turn it all around, and it's doing well now. So you have your own story of challenge of I mean, for him it was like, it's like a rebel kind of thing, like, okay, I don't feel like I fit in, so I'm going to be different. I'm going to be, whatever. I'm gonna go against the system. And he still is, but now in a healthier way. So I bring him up in a way because I think you're similar. I have a feeling some of it's similar anyway, not all of it maybe, but I know you have a background with mental health and getting into trouble and things like that. So I'd love to hear your journey of being a guy that maybe wasn't understood or had challenges in family or whatever these cases would be. Tell us your story of what unfolded for you.
Yeah, like that's I really resonated with the going against the system, but finding a little bit better way to do it. Because I still do feel like I'm rallying against the system. I'm just, not a rebel without a cause anymore. My
Mhm.
maybe my James Dean days are done, but I do. I grew up here in Wisconsin. I grew up in a family, a lot of alcoholism ran rampant in the family early on. It's very, very ingrained in the culture here, and especially in Wisconsin. I believe we have like, you know, 19 of the 20 top drinking counties in the country. So, it's just very much in the culture. And so some of the things I dealt with early on is that, I dealt with seeing this alcoholism in both of my parents, and wanting, and that feeling of not belonging. Like I went to school, and I was picked on. Like I don't get in the victim state anymore, but I will say this: I was bullied, and I was also, ridiculed for being poor and, smart. Like I was, like the two most bullyable things, right? So, the years progressed, I really had no identity, because everything that happened from that 0 to 7 range, I just didn't know who I was, because I didn't fit in. I felt like such an outsider, and I think that happens to a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so about 9, I realized that I could start getting attention by acting out. And I don't know that that was necessarily my thought process at that age, because you're 9, right? You just, you want to belong, and though that was always the easiest group to belong with. And the truth is I saw early on that there were some flaws in the way the hierarchy of the school system works. So I did start, with that rebel mentality early on. And that the thing with men is, I think we're constantly watching our fathers. If we have a father figure in our life, like, and I saw my dad as the James Dean type, this outlaw, this doesn't give a crap attitude, right? And like there was a part of me that mimicked that and respected that. So it played this part in this identity that I was creating within myself. That wasn't truly my authentic being. It was a thread in the tapestry that is me today, but it was nothing. It wasn't my authentic self. So, I started getting in major trouble around 13, 14. I started drinking around 13. Stolen cars, spent a lot of time in juvenile detention centers. Just because I didn't know how to relate to people. I would find my crew of people, and then it was my job to be the craziest one, right? Like I was the one, because that's where I got my piece of self worth.
Yep.
Like Josh is the crazy one, right? So, as time progressed, I spent a majority of 14 to 17 behind bars, which was really a struggle in itself, because I didn't really realize till later on how damaging that was to me, because I didn't, like the social hierarchy of, those freshman to senior years, I had completely missed. And I had spent those in a different sort of social hierarchy, right? And so like this all started creating this, illusion of who I was, right? I started wearing this mask, um, becoming more gruff, becoming more, more like the outlaw archetype of Jungian,
Mhm.
philosophy. Um, and that continued really for my, like I got out of jail when I was 17, and began work on construction crews, right? And it was just like, like I thought this is how everybody acted, like we would drink all day, go back to the hotel, party all night, do it all over. I was 17, and I thought this is just what life was, and it makes sense. Makes
Mhm.
sense a little bit longer down the road when you realize that we manifest these situations into our life over and over again. But at
Mhm.
the time, I didn't really see that, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, as that progressed, my drug use started to pick up. I had started with marijuana very early on, but as I continued working on these crews, stimulants became more prevalent into my peripherals. So, it didn't take too long to start getting, used to using cocaine, and then, methamphetamines, and, a lot of different things. There were a lot of different experimental periods of in my 20s. But I really struggled with stimulant use. And this is where a lot of my mental health issues came from. I realize now that I've always been extremely sensitive to energy. And I always went into, stimulant based psychosis very early on. From a very early on in my use, I would go into these psychosis. But it's a little bit more than that, and we can discuss that a little bit further. It's not strictly psychosis, but like these extreme waves of paranoia, based on me, spreading my energy field so far to see everything that was around. Now that I know a little bit more about energy, I know exactly what I was doing. I just didn't understand it at the time. But I do, so I struggled with drugs for the next 8 years until the age of 33, which is a nice round number, isn't it? So, um, and throughout this period, like I didn't work on my spirit at all. Like I grew up, we went to church a little bit, had a nice family that used to take us to church, but it never sat with me. Like I never really felt the Holy Spirit move through me, so to say. And I started listening to George Carlin when I was like 18, 19, and I was like, wow, this guy is on. So, all the things that I used to chastise, people that go to organized religion, or people that look to organized religion, I did the same thing by listening to George Carlin. I was like, well, that makes sense. I'm just phoning it all in. I don't need to really do any work on my spirit. George has said it all. I'm just going to be down here. One day I'm going to die. I don't really have a mission, have no idea what's going on. And that's where it was. And that's a major point of what my addiction was about for me. Was that there was a disconnect from me and my spirit. I was so deeply rooted in just the material plane and the need for instant gratification that I had completely lost connection with my spirit, and it was sick. And it was 2017 when my spiritual awakening happened. I was on I'd been really, really using heavily for about 11 months, and everything started to crack. All of the illusions that I had created in my mind about, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. So when I began to see synchronicities, like I felt like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, right? Like I'm trying to put these dots together. I'm all on these, I'm on these this excessive amount of stimulants, fighting with these, unseen entities, and so everything that I had ever believed was shattered, and I couldn't handle it. I ended up in a mental health institution, for a few day stay, which I admittedly lied my way to get out of. I said I was there because I was in exhaustion, which is half true. The other truth is that I was on enough stimulants that, would give Lemmy a run for his money in his prime. So once I got out, I went right back to doing the same things, and I ended up going to prison in 2018. And it was there that my spiritual awakening really took place, because now I had a place to get away from the drugs. And the thing is they had diagnosed me with schizophrenia, when I went in, and they put me on a litany of very heavy medications, Haldol, risperidone, many deep medications. And I to this day I don't really know, and there's no real use looking back as to if that played a part in the healing process or not. All I know is during that 2-year time, I started receiving messages from spirit, a lot more. And I was still very resistant to, Christian works because of my childhood and, things I had witnessed in the church. But it was my aunt, who's a very devout Lutheran. It was actually 3 words that she said that really started me on this path of really raising my consciousness and why I'm here today. And she said, God is love. And, for the first time in my life, there was a God I felt I could get behind. So, I'd like to tell you the hero's journey is that I got out of prison and I made amends with myself and everything was good. But truth is, I was in a halfway house for 3 days and I relapsed again. And
Mhm.
this time it got worse mentally. And this happened for another 6 months. I let this go for another
Mhm.
6 months.
Mhm.
During that time, spirit kept coming through. But if you know anything about, I don't, after reading the four agreements, I try not to speak from opinion as much anymore. But I will tell you a truth that I know that is reflective of my soul's journey is that it's like we're on some type of soul progression evolution plane down here. And when I don't heed to the lesson of spirit, it gets harder and harder. And those the dark nights of the soul I went through from January of 2020 to later parts of October were pretty rough. I was fighting those demons on the outside and the demons inside. It was a rough patch, but there's a lot of beauty in that darkness, being 4 years removed from that now, and seeing all the people that have come out of the woodwork, and this is you know, two conscious guys talking. What's hard? What was the hardest part for my path? Being a stimulant user and being in that constant state of paranoia, coupling with the spiritual awakening process, which is very daunting to a sober mind. When you begin to see all these synchronicities and patterns. So, like I felt like the whole world was after me and trying to kill me during certain these periods. So, reaching out to get help was like just a foreign concept that I couldn't get past. But when I did, I started meeting the most remarkable people, and they've led me here to this very day. So, and
Wow.
it's 222 here. So
Yeah,
look at
right.
that.
Yeah. Another one.
So
Awesome. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a potent journey for sure. I mean, one of the things that I was taking note of right away is just saying that, you're energetically, you're open and you connect with a lot of energy. And I think probably there's a number of guys listening in and people listening in that really relate to that. Women too. Women listen to these podcasts a lot too. And that, we don't know what to do with that. I mean, that part was no different for me. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I just felt like it's all a big game. I could make anything happen. I could, right? Like I did, but I wasn't aware of like being like psychic and all that. I wasn't aware of, even if I was doing it, like I didn't even know. I wasn't aware of anything. I just was like, I had a sense of I could do anything. I didn't mean I went around doing stuff all the time at all, but I just knew that. And I've laughed before. I says, and if my buddies didn't think so, I'd show them that it was true. Like, right? You can relate to that part, I'm sure. You don't think I can do
absolutely.
it? All right, here we go. Right? So all that kind of fun stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, just that sensitivity. I mean, for me, I was called Mr. Invisible in high school because, um, I was very deviant in my own way. I mean, people usually are like, "What you?" But like, yeah, I mean, I didn't do nearly as much as some people do, but letting the air out of tires of people's cars, things like that, throwing stuff apple through someone's window, or whatever, all just little different things like that. Little things like throwing eggs at people's cars as we're driving down the street, like while they're driving, like on the windshield, like crazy crap like that. I mean,
Yeah.
having people chase us with knives in their cars and chase us down the street because we threw something at like just I mean, not super extreme stories like some people have, but interesting ones, right? That's kind of extreme, right? That could have been pretty bad if they caught us, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I can laugh now, and at the time, it actually was. I mean, I know with all the substance abuse, maybe it changes a little bit, but like honestly, from the infinite itself, it's like, yeah, part of us feels like, man, why did I do all that? We could come up with all the reasons now, but it's like on another level, I always say our infinite self is just sitting there like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is interesting, right? And so it was super fun at the time. I don't think I spent any time and very much regret ever about things that I did that weren't good, to be doing at the time. I was just like, well, I'm glad I didn't get caught, and that was fun. And like, so, so, uh, so yeah. I mean, so I sort of, and then I did. I thought like school is all bullshit. There's no reason to be at school. What are we doing there? It's all nonsense. Um, I had all those thoughts really early. I didn't believe in Santa Claus from almost day one. Like, yeah, right. I'm like, that's no, but come on, down the chimney and all this stuff. Give me a break. Like even at 3, 4 years old, I knew like they didn't make any sense. Like, and yeah, just my point is, I just was. One of my last guests said, he says, "Yeah, you were born awake." He had written a chapter in a book or something called "Born Awake." So I think like some of us that are born awake, so to speak, like yeah, it's really a challenging. It's even more challenging maybe in some ways for us because we, we already know like this is all a bunch of not, and we don't know how to handle it. Like especially as a kid, wait, how do we handle this? Like we're put in insane situations sometimes in our family. My family wasn't insane, but there were definitely challenges. I mean, some crazy challenges sometimes. So anyway, I could go on and on, but yeah, I totally with the sensitivity and rebelling against the system kind of feeling. Yeah, but that turns you into depression, anxiety, and can lead to all the other things, right? I was called bipolar. I was called delusions of grandeur. I had probably mini psychotic episodes or whatever, just because I was open enough to experience weird things. Squirrels talking to me, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Hey.
Yeah.
Right? With no stimulants, just because I was starting to wake up, right?
Yeah.
So this is crazy. So yeah, so I don't know the substance abuse past so much. I messed around with stuff like everybody does, but I didn't have so-called issues or whatever with that. Just dipped into it, but a little bit, even not that much, just at average, if that, even most of the time. Although I started young, but yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say I can hear you, I can see you, I can feel like how do you deal with all that energy, right? Like that was one of my central questions. So when you don't know how to deal with it, you do different things. And one of the things you might fall into is, yeah, breaking the law, doing substance abuse, all these different things. So I just want to share that with the guys too. Like, hey, you're just trying to figure out who you are, how to deal with all this energy and everything. Because even within the last year or two, there's been right with about 2 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, I would tell some people that I'm close to, I'd be like, I share things on here that I don't share anywhere else. I'd say, sometimes I have so much energy flowing through me, I just literally don't know what the hell to do with it. Like, I just don't know what to do. It wakes me up at night. I don't, it's not all the time either, but just like this, all this energy, it's just like the energy is turned on. It's just like, let's go, let's do it, whatever. It does what? Like, it's high alert. Like somebody's breaking into the house, I'm sure of it, but it's not that even. It's just a feeling. It's almost like that though. Like you need to be on guard and it's hyper arousal. And anyway, it's just, yeah, I mean, you guys aren't, what I'm saying is we're not crazy. It's just there's something going on inside ourselves that it's a huge gift once you start to realize what it's about. That's what I'm hearing from you, Josh. Is starting to is you well, on your own path, awakening. You're discovering, man, they got these huge gifts in this too. Anyway, so it is just two conscious guys talking here, so I'm just chatting here, Josh. I had, but I just wanted to reflect back what was coming up as you had shared.
You said a couple things there that I thought was interesting, like the shame piece. I think that was a big part for me. The shame is what kept me in that loop, right? So I
Mm,
really commend you for not having to go with that, because it's really a pointless emotion when it comes to growth.
mm,
It didn't serve me any well, and I thought that I was appeasing my past if I were to just stay miserable all the time. And I
yeah.
think that's really what kept me in that, phoenix burning through the dark nights of the soul loop, is that's what it felt like. The born awake term, that's very interesting.
Mhm.
Because I remember something very vividly. It's one of my most vivid memories, and that is being in second grade and looking all around at people and being like, I'm not like you. Like
Yeah.
like I was always a people watcher, and not in a weird way. I was just always fascinated. And I think that's where some of my abilities developed. And I didn't really think that I was born into it, but it makes a lot of sense. I always watched, I always knew the words to say to help or heal, because I never wanted anybody to feel like, other people made me feel. Not
Yeah.
saying that I've always, done that on this journey, but I've done my best to be, more of a healing hand than, someone that takes.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Animals talking. You're not weird, man. We all talk to squirrels. I do it. I talk to animals more now that I'm off drugs than I ever did when
Right.
I was on drugs.
That's
I,
funny.
you know, I read an amazing book a couple years ago that came to me, was Animal Speak by Ted Andrews. I think it was Ted Andrews. Just a
Mhm.
phenomenal book. I recommend that book to anybody.
Mhm.
But I've seen, I've seen the synchronicities in nature. They were one of the first ones that showed me between that and, numbers. It was really nature and numbers that came to me first. There's so much wisdom and healing, in the animal kingdom. And it's funny because you were talking about all that energy moving through you too.
Yeah.
And immediately I got the vision of the cheetah, because cheetahs come to my totem recently. And
Mhm.
that's like, extreme bursts of speed by lots of rest, and that's really my MO. And that's, you know, like we were talking a little bit before, I'm not feeling great today, and I've really been pushing for a while again. So, spirit will shut me down when I'm getting to the point
Mhm.
where I'm dipping into the reserves. So,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm. Yeah, the cheetah. Yeah, that was the animal I always said was my favorite animal. Because you always get those questions. What's your favorite animal or whatever? I want to run the fastest. And it was so funny because this is kind of a fun guy story too. But it's a fun story. But yeah, as a kid, I actually earlier as a kid, I was probably more on the slow side with the running and all that kind of stuff. And then, but I always thought, oh, cheetah, I love the cheetah. I want to run the fastest, fastest in the world, that they would say at the time. I don't even think that's true anymore, but like that's what they always said. But anyway, so then I just remember telling myself, because again, I have this crazy thing. I'm like, I can do anything. So I just put it in my mind. I says, "That's it. I'm going to be running fast." And then I go out and train on my own. And I was using techniques that I'm sure they teach today how to run faster. Like I didn't have any training. I just started training myself. I believe if I do this, this will make me faster. And I go out and I didn't do massive training, but I did some training and just like working on my technique and sprinting and everything. And then lo and behold, like as I got older, like people are like really serious athletes. I'd be keeping pace with them and everything. I'm like, you're growing, but like I literally put it in my mind. That's it. I'm running fast. And also now you go from the slow kid to a fast kid, like it's pretty wild. I mean, why do I bring that up? Because you brought up the cheetah, but it's interesting, like how potent we are, like how we can really respond to these suggestions. I mean, I know I'm probably 1,000,000% delusional, but when I was even 40, I remember saying to myself, "Man, I think I'm just about as fast as anyone on the planet. Like I am so fast. I really am." Like, so I was doing a lot of running at the time. I'm like, man, I'm kind of blown away by how fast I am. Like, like, and I probably not. I have timed myself. After that time, I timed myself, which may not be accurate, and it wasn't like world class at all. But it was like even just trying one time, I did like 5 seconds, 5.0, I think it was, or something, close to 5.0 on the 40 yard, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're a non-athlete, you're not going out there training all the time. Not too bad, because I was like, I want to see how fast I am. I was like, wow, it's pretty interesting. So, but yeah, it's phenomenal when we really get interested in something, how we can really take off and completely transform ourselves from wherever state we were in before into a whole nother state. So that's the whole thing where don't buy into the labels and the ideas of who we are, right? Like, yeah, I don't no, I'm a fast kid. I'm not the slow kid, like so like just getting really clear. And I've always loved surprising people. Like when people are like, you're just scrawny, kind of scrawny or skinny or whatever. You're not much. We're not. I'm like, okay, let's see. You want to see how much I am? Like, throwing bigger guys around and stuff, and like they just couldn't believe it either. Or they see me lifting weights, and in high school, especially these days, maybe not as impressive, but because I was really training back then. Like, whoa, you can. I didn't expect you could lift that much weight, or whatever. Like, I always love to surprise people. It kind of bothered me though, right? Like that everybody sees you as weak. Women would say, like, is that too heavy for you? Like I've gotten that many times in the past. Once I finally claimed my own strength and confidence, I stopped hearing it. Um, but yeah, like just people, oh, yeah, you're just like an intellectual kind of guy, and I wasn't even good at school. Like, you have no clue who I am. Like, so
Yeah.
anyway, I can go on and on, but yeah, just this feeling of like people don't get you, and it bothering you. Was a big thing for me.
It's similar, it was, like I still at 39, just 4 years into my, like awakening to more now, doing the real inner work over the last 4 years. The awakening happened a few years, but I really didn't have a great someone to walk with me. A lot of that was a lot of ensuing rabbit holes, like we all go through at the beginning of the path. Like, I must
Mhm.
know it all. I must know it yesterday. I don't know where it is, but I will find it through endless search, which I have found actually to be the opposite. I have found that when I just shut up and get out of the way, spirit just lets me know, but which is counterintuitive to the overthinker, right?
Right.
you know, um, you know, um, so it's interesting, like that identity piece that comes from not knowing who you are who you are as a child, or struggling to want to fit in. I found out that I enjoy not fitting in. Like I didn't see that for the gift it was. Like, like
Mhm.
the dream is we got a couple acres here and expanding this year, and I plan on naming this place Black Sheep Ranch, because that's exactly what I am, and it's okay. Like for so long I just wanted to fit in that I never really explored who I was, and
Mhm.
that's and then when I did explore, I was under the influence. So having all these years of sobriety behind me now and doing the inner work every day and making that my committing to myself, like that was the major turning point. The commitment, and like you were talking about the running and if you believe you can do something, you can. I really believe that. Like I because when I'm in the beginning of trying to get clean, I was like, I can never get clean. That was my mantra inside my head, and guess what? I didn't get clean when that was what I was saying. But when I started saying I can do this, I can do this, I know I can do this,
Mhm.
things, I'm not saying that they just flipped overnight, but within 6 months of changing the way that my inner voice worked, um, I was able to start, you know, putting some real stretches of sobriety around.
Mhm.
Um, and
Mhm.
now it's funny, like I don't. It's interesting because I'm in a weird place with spirituality, right? Like
Mhm.
I've done all this, I'm doing all this inner work. I've continued to do it. I'm excited about doing it. It's the weirdest thing. You never thought I'd get to this stage in my life where, the process of going deeper and deeper within myself would be what excites me, but it is. And at the same time, like I come on podcasts like this, and I've been doing this for the last 3 months now, And I
Mhm.
listened to ones 3 months ago. I was like, I don't even know that I completely believe what I said then, because I'm ever evolving, and based on, the downloads and based on life experience. And it's just such a cool journey, once we open ourselves up to spirit and just allow things and just become, unattached to outcomes and just allow for the journey to be. And it's maddening, like I'm an overthinker, like I'm a controller. I mean, like these are the cruxes of the other cruxes of my journey and being a Scorpio to boot.
Mhm.
Like I love to control things. So like this last 4 months has all been about just putting my hands up and being like, all right, spirit, like for the first time in my life, I'm gonna surrender to what you show me. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful because it's led to so much stress release and stress relief in my life. And it's not like I'm not attached to the relationships I have. It means I can, like I have more energy on reserve to really nourish those. you know um,
Mhm.
during my healing process, I traveled down to Texas to do some work with some plant medicine shamans, and I did a bufo ceremony when I was down there, and that was a very transformative process, because I never liked hallucinogens personally. I never looked at them as medicine, right? Like everything was always just to get messed up, right? So I had never viewed these things as medicines like I do now. And I was always a stimulant user, because stimulant use gave me more control. Like so I convinced myself. I will say that is not necessarily true. Then sitting here today, but like so these medicines that induce hallucination um, were very scary for me. But I knew it was a forced surrender, right? Because you have no choice when you do the toad, to do bufo, you're surrendering. You don't, it's like you really don't have a choice. You can either go with it or try to fight it. And you know, I I fought the first dose, and it was very tough. And I was the only gentleman that weekend that had to. I did two back to back. I went, did one, and then shaman comes. He's got his grass fan. He looks just like Benicio del Toro, which was messed up to see in that state anyway. And he's like, brother, we need to go deeper. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm thinking in my head, I was like, I cannot go any farther. I don't want to go any farther. But I did, because I trusted him. He was holding space for me. And that second dose, I actually saw, we were back in a sand pit, and I watched a weed just start growing, through the sand pit. And I knew why so many of my relationships in my life had failed in that very moment. It's because I didn't water my garden. So,
Mhm.
I that was the message I left there with, is that, if I want to have successful relationships, or if that I have to water my garden. And
Mhm.
it's been one of the most beneficial and crucial lessons in my path as well. Because like there's so much of addiction, for me was really, and why it was so hard for me. It was like these conflicting empathic and narcissistic qualities within myself. Like
Mhm.
I would do anything I could to help you, and then I would do anything I could to get one over on people so I could get my next fix. It was really
Yeah.
the battle of the two wolves on the in and outside. And so, but
Mhm.
those are some of the experiences that I've
Mhm.
I've had.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense, right? Like I'm gonna do all this good, and then, but then when I need mine, give it to me. Yeah, I get it. I get that dynamic. I mean, somehow I do, probably because I've done it myself, but and don't even fully recognize it consciously in this moment, but that sounds familiar. So I can understand that. I think there's a lot of people that grow up in families like that too, with the substance abuse, where there's that mentality. Because I've met many of them, with all the people I've helped through the years, because I started with counseling and doing counseling with people because I was psychology was my background, and yeah, people would come in and I know how this whole world works. It's all about money. That's what it is. And, and you know, just you want to know what's going on, just follow the money. I remember one guy coming in saying, and just yeah, some of that, you know, there's truth to it, but there's also and that's I'll never forget it. So there's truth to it, but also that there's that paranoid edge to it too. Like, you know, you can't trust anybody. Everybody's in it for a buck, and I'm paying you, and you probably just want the money, and that's all you want, and all that kind of stuff. You can't trust a thing, and yeah, it's a heck of a. I mean, I know I've struggled with that. Like, you can't trust because that's what we learn. You know, I was bullied too, and not extensively, but just a few. You know, but yet it was a major part of my my issues. Like somebody bullying me, you know, like there's a major cause a major rift inside me because I'm like, yeah, okay, I want to be compassionate and be loved, but I also want to protect myself and I don't want to be humiliated. So I got to be ready to like take anybody down and be willing to take it all away. I'll put you in the grave, you know, like literally. I mean, I literally thought that way.
Mhm.
If that's what it takes, that's what's going to happen. You want to meet me after school for a fight? All right, I'll put you in the ground. You know, how about that? And I was serious. I was not kidding. It was not a just make believe idea in my head. Uh, I never did it because I didn't want to, but I was ready for that because I thought that's what I would need. Because I don't want to get, I cannot be defeated. I will not lose. I will, that was my mentality. And so a lot of times I've spent a lot of my life dialing things back as a masculine because I don't want to be that emasculating. Even I mean, a lot of people can see me, they're like, no way, could you be like that? But you know, that's only if you see one side of me, right? Like that I could be so strong to just overpower people. And sometimes it's good when when you're really strong for somebody, but the power over is boy, you know, that can be very destructive. So potentially. So yeah, very sensitive to that. And then so I go really soft, really watery sometimes on my path. And then I tend to have bad outcomes, things that depress me, right? Then I go into depressive cycle and all that sort of thing. And so yeah, I could very easily see. I mean, again, I don't totally relate to the addiction stuff, but you know, we're all addicted to something, whether it's our thoughts or whether we're doing something to ourselves, right? One way or another. But yeah, I mean, anyway, so that's yeah, this is really cool. It's a cool conversation, Josh. I'm
Yeah,
enjoying this.
yeah, I love this, man. You know, you've really opened me up to on a couple things here that I'm gonna have to do some research on the back end. um, you know, you know what? You said that of the addiction piece, and I have to tell you, I have done zero work in recovery. Right? Like I don't go to meetings.
Yeah, curious
I
about
guess
that.
it's not addiction wasn't what the problem was,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
know, and I have a lot of people that, you know, kind of ask me to do things in recovery and I'm not there. And it's not because I don't respect that part of the path. I mean, like I know that that helps a lot of people. It's
mm,
just not what helped me, you know, and I'm looking more for people that don't even fit into that. You know, it's
mm,
interesting. Like I've gone to a couple recovery meetings at the behest of a couple friends, some of the most amazing meetings I've been to, but I leave and I want to drink and I have no idea. It's probably that masochist inside.
mm,
But you know, like you know, so recovery for me is it's different than a lot of other people's. For me, it was a lot of self work, introspection. You know, there were weeks that I would spend 60 hours in meditation. You know, just because well, first, everything in life was falling the F apart, and I
mm,
really didn't know what else to do.
yeah.
Um, you know, but you know, it's so interesting because I don't identify as an addict or an alcoholic anymore. You know, like I had you know, like I like to I had times in my life where I used things excessively, and that's something I can own. But I don't get into myself into the identity that I'm an alcoholic or an addict because that to me that doesn't fit for me. It doesn't feel right. Like I don't get my a piece of my self-worth from saying I'm an alcoholic or an addict. To me, that does the opposite. That boxes me into something. And
Yeah.
then once again, that's, I'm not throwing shade in any direction towards
Yeah.
the people that practice this way.
Yeah.
My mother's been in AA for over 35 years now, so
Mm-hmm.
I do know it helps. I just, for
Yeah.
me, my process was a lot different. But like we talked about in the beginning, I've always been a little bucky against any type of system. So it's
I think the main tenet I hear for most people that go through recovery is usually the AA process, right? The surrender piece, that this sense, like you can word it in different ways, but it's yeah, that I'm powerless and all that. There's, I feel like you did that you're doing that in your own way through what you've done, right? Like, I give up. I'll meditate 100 hours a week if that's what it takes. Like, whatever just lets me just become free, so to speak, psychologically. And like, what's going to get me to that place where I'm completely surrendered, not trying to control everything, right? So I feel like you're probably utilizing some of the same principles, but to go into that particular you know, whatever, like that particular club or whatever. Like, I guess, like, I don't want to, make it sound trivial, but it's not super potent, but that just doesn't resonate for you so far anyway. Who knows? Anything could change, right? But I could hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's like I said, who knows what I'll be thinking 3 months from now. I
Yeah,
have an email list full of people asking me to do things in the recovery community, and I don't know, because if I'm being my authentic self, that's not where I'm at right now. But if I'm also being the observer and seeing what spirit is putting in front of me, am I shutting myself down by not? And so, it's something that I'll be taking a deeper look into. I know where I sit right now in regards to
right.
that. But, the 12 steps have definitely been prevalent in my, like I look back at them and I can see, like I started with the first five, like
Mhm.
before my teacher would allow me to work with her. She wanted me to accomplish, the first five steps. And there's a necessity in that. I didn't see it at first, right? So in the beginning, I was like, I didn't want to do it, mostly because I just didn't want to do it.
Right.
uh,
And to stay in control still.
yeah, absolutely. That is an accurate statement. So, um, as I started doing them, so just giving myself over to a higher power, shit, that one was like the hardest one for me. Like, because it was the control piece, right? Like, to let myself believe that I couldn't fix myself was like a failure. And this is a very masculine, overactive masculine type, emotion. I think,
Mhm.
it's a weird culture, man. Like I try to stay off Facebook and the videos as much as possible, but there's just so much back and forth about, the term masculinity. And it's like I don't even want to buy into the energetic program at all. I just want to be me
Yeah.
and raise. I think we're all meant to simply be who we are, the purest form of our essence here. And if that is, some of what I see, I guess that's correct. If it's correct for you, if you feel happy. But the thing is, as I see these certain types of, like the real masculine bravado type,
Yeah.
and I don't see a lot of happiness or contentment. Like there's a
Right.
lot of like rage, and I'm like, I guess if that's how you want to feel, like I didn't want to feel like that anymore. Like
Right.
I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel love. And don't get me wrong, like there's still that very much in touch of that bastard in the box. He can come
Mhm.
on, I can
Right.
flip that switch. It's just not who I choose to be.
Right.
I
Right.
think, we're meant to balance our energies, which
Right.
is, you tell men in this day and age that they have to get in touch with their feminine side, you're gonna get a right hook to the face. And I think it's been like that for a long
That
time.
depends. Yeah, if you go to a local bar, probably. Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, right.
But
um,
yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I mean, I've seen the organizations out there. They're like often they're like for men, business owners and stuff. I remember, and I forget the name of the group, but the guy is like they're literally like a military organization. They're like, all right, here we are, whatever, like just all this, they're all in suits and they're all like, like the military saluting or something or whatever. And yes, sir, here we go. Whatever, we will be kings, we will rule, we will, all right, all that stuff. And it's like, okay, what are you afraid of? Like, I
Of
mean,
not
honestly,
being a king.
you have to be like that all the time. You're afraid of something, right? I mean, it's that controller again. I think it's like you said, it has to be for health and well-being, and you really ultimately you really do need the balance. And not everybody really can find that, necessarily so easily. So they navigate towards that. I've been too. So yeah, when you're been really more maybe on the emotional yin side, you think now you need to be like completely the opposite. But it's going to be a you're gonna find like that's not the answer either. Ultimately, maybe it serves for a while, a little bit, but or some to some degree, right? I can see that blowing some stuff up that may not be so good as well. But yeah, it's cool you brought that up because this is sort of a men's circle here, right? And there's
Yeah.
all these different ways people approach trying to rebalance themselves or whatever. And yeah, I definitely have seen that too. And I thought, well, I was compelled by the content because it's just interesting, but I'm like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah, I think as men, stepping in, into the healing world. And this is, like I want to say, like I'm new to this over the last 3 years. I've, after studying energetics, I see how the balance works for me. Like I really come at as a practitioner, I come from that yin side, that loving, nurturing side. But when I'm feeling taken advantage of, or I feel like, there's certain things you kind of wop with the yang a little bit,
Yeah.
but there's a balance of the two, right? And
Right.
I've learned this from being on the other side of that with my teacher, and at one point recognizing exactly what's going on.
Right.
So,
Right.
um, I think,
He's got a strong yin and yang, yeah, knowing who that is. But
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
hey, you want a cup of tea? I'll kill you if you do this. He's got dual energy inside of her. It's just a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, we could talk for hours and hours. I'm glad you talked about because it sounds like what was worked for you is, finding your own spiritual path, getting on your own spiritual path in your own way that worked for you, that came to you, and you throughout, whatever the medicine journey and stuff, whatever, you found your own path and the right teachers or whatever, right support. And, that's what's helped, been part of the process to flip things around for you. And, I always say like, we never can get too cocky either, though. It's like, I could be a total suicidal wreck by the end of the day for all I know. I don't know. I'm not so arrogant to be like, I have transcended everything. I am fine. Yeah. I don't know. I could be in the darkest place ever, at some point in the future. I have no clue, right? So all I know is like, here I am. I feel how I do right now. I feel good right now. I want to keep that momentum going. So hopefully I don't have to necessarily dip into those places, although I don't want to be afraid of it either. If it happens, okay, here we are.
Right.
But to realize, yeah, the idea, oh, I'll never get back to where I was before, like in those dark places. Well, that's a mistake, to think like you're impervious now. Like I'm speaking to myself too, as you don't know. I mean, you better keep up the good work or you don't know where you're going. I mean, and even then you don't know, but you just do the best you can.
One thing I've noticed on this path, and really kind of speed leveling through it and catching up is that, it's like we unlock these layers and levels of consciousness. And it's
Hmm.
like we get to this point where we're working through our own stuff because, healers, we're working through our own shit just as much as the people that we're working with, right?
Right.
And we come to each other usually for
Right.
answers because
Right.
we're like,
Totally.
I don't know what's going on. I'm stuck.
Right.
But, it's like as I unlock a layer or a level, it's like I get to the next level and then there's like still shades of that wound somewhere in my energy field, shades of that same thing that come in a different form to let me know that it's not completely all the way healed. And the spiral symbolism came to me like crazy during the last 2 years. So, and that's what that meant to me, is that journey inward, but it's also a little bit more than that to me. And you said something about everybody and their spiritual path and their path to healing. I really believe that is an individualized process.
Mhm.
Spirituality is a very individualized process, and there are many forms of spirituality, I think, that are just as guilty as religion is creating indoctrination at this point.
Mhm.
They're like, this is the way it is, and it's like, no, it's not. That's my like, I view what I have witnessed as my truth, because that is what I can speak to. Now, that
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm not open to listen and to apply what I've learned from others, but what works for me is what works for me, because it once worked for me. Right. So not saying that truth isn't ever evolving based on meeting new people and trying new things, but
Mhm.
that authenticity is such a huge part of being spiritual. Embracing your inner weird, or what society would consider weird.
Mhm.
Embracing what you are underneath those layers and peeling them back to find out different layers of yourself. Right. Working a lot with the crown chakra right now. It's all about opening that lotus, right? But
Right.
and it's just such a cool journey. Once you commit to it, right? You commit to that becoming the fullest expression of yourself. And many people they fear that their shadow attributes will take over when they embark upon this process, and it's quite the opposite, because during this process your heart opens more. And and when you start seeing the deeper relations between dharma and karma, and the things that we create based in our actions, you realize the mark you leave on the world, and you realize what comes back. And
Right.
that there are some universal laws that I've ran into that seem to be absolutely accurate. A lot of these are, some of the hermetic principles, seem to, they came to me on this journey, and I put some stock in those. Um, but
Mhm.
it's be yourselves, be yourself, be who you are, and listen to your spirit, right? Like, we all have guides, like, when we find our teachers, and inevitably, if you're on this path, you find somebody who is a teacher. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably finding a teacher, right? Because these are for the people that are awakening, or have been through the process. And we all learn from each other here,
Yeah.
and we have those people that resonate with us, and spirit puts us in each other's trajectory for a reason. That's
Mhm.
something I fully believe in. And it's the reason that I'm here today, and I'm extremely grateful. This has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, absolutely been enjoying this. And I always, often I say anyway, I feel like, man, we could talk for another hour too easy. But yeah, so maybe, yeah, never know. Maybe we'll have you back at some point or something. Go deeper again. So, because yeah, there's so much, and there's just so much. And yeah, something you said, it's like, yeah, I mean, one of the things I heard the other day as we're wrapping up is just I was listening to a podcast, and they're talking about when you go to the other side and everything, and that they talk about the life reviews and everything, and they were talking about it. And so yeah, a lot of people say it's like in Earth time, it probably takes a few minutes, but like you review like every single thing you. I don't want to scare you, Josh, if you feel like this is going to be traumatic for you or anybody else, but you review like all everything you circulate with people. You experience it from their state, from their present, like. Oh, that's how it felt when I said that to them. That's what it felt like when I did that to them. You've experienced it all like in a few minutes of Earth time. Like, and you get all of it. You go through every single minute, is what they claim anyway, and how it works. And it's interesting because I don't know if you've ever watched it, but like with I think about what the heck's it called, with the Ghost Rider and everything, Nicolas Cage and all that. What are those ones called again? anyway, he's like a Marvel superhero, and he makes people see, like, a re-experience all of their shit they've done, like right before he kills them. Like, and he takes them to probably hell or whatever. I don't know, wherever they go afterwards in that particular movie. But there's multiple of them. It's called Ghost Rider.
Yep.
I recommend it because it's interesting stuff what they show in there. But anyway, yeah. So my point is, like, man, we're seeding not only for this life, but for the path ahead, because we're ever evolving souls. We're so much evidence. There's over 2,000 people or more that have been documented. I think it's like 2,000 people that have been documented to recall their past lives, and they've been verified that they're true. Like kids come in and they say, this is who I was, this is what was happening. Researchers have looked into it, and they're all true. So, guys, we keep coming back. We're seeding things. It doesn't mean, and also what they're saying is, like, it doesn't mean if you're bad one lifetime, automatically you're going to get your ass kicked the next life. Like, yeah, maybe it comes back to you. Maybe you need to cycle through it in a way, but it's not like that either. So, like, yeah, so what you were saying, I thought was really interesting. We have to realize, like, don't be so hard on yourself, because you are forgiven, so to speak, the minute you forgive yourself. You're rewriting your karma, so to speak, by forgiving yourself, by loving yourself. And if you don't, then yeah, you maybe in another lifetime you're going to get smacked around some more because you're still beating yourself up, right? So anyway, so yeah, as we're starting to close, I don't know, I get carried away. I'm like, I just need to share this last piece here. Yeah. Anyway, so Joshua, so we can wrap up. Well, if people want to contact you or reach out to you, where's a good place for them to do that?
So you can look me up at JD Radewan on Facebook. You can also find me at Joshua at kellysparta.com if you want to send me an email. Those are the two places, and I'd love to hear from you. Love questions, and it's a big part of the path is answering those questions, as we both know, Dan. So.
Oh boy, yeah, there's always so much more. All right. Josh, thanks for coming on. It's a total pleasure having you on the show, and yeah, I look forward to more connections. And hey, we'll have to get together for an iced tea or something, someday.
As long as they're not Long Island.
Yeah, right. Right. All right. Thanks so much.
All right, Dad. Thanks.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.